Hey guys, we're back. How high the moon? So, we have a new chapter today, and it is about Ella. Ella is our main character. Let's talk about Ella for a second. So we know a few things about her. We know some of her character traits. So traits are um, things that are kind of unique to a person that make them who they are, right? It's like how you would identify them. So um, Ella is a young lady. She's 11, maybe? I think she's 11, and her cousin Henry was 12. I think that's what it was. Um, and she's from South Carolina, Alkaloo, South Carolina. She is strong, right? Like she helps protect her older cousin. She sticks up for the little guy. She's adventurous. She just went on an adventure on a train all by herself to go visit her mom who lives in Boston. She's hoping she's going to move in with her mom. She's also inquisitive, which means she like asks questions, right? So she wants to know about her dad. She doesn't know who her dad is. Um, and we know she's beautiful because people talk about that all the time. She's also a very light-skinned black woman, black girl. So like people in the time in the 1940s made a lot of comments about that because it was a good thing to be lighter skinned because you would blend in more. But the kids make fun of her for it, right? They call her zebra. They're jealous, so they use different sort of words with them, with her about it, and it's not something that she's like super proud of. Um, what else do we know about her? Yeah, she's smart. We know she loves school and she's friendly. She likes having friends. She loves to dance and she loves her family. That is the huge thing about her, right? So those are great character traits about our friend Ella. Okay. Ella also, when she's in South Carolina, she lives with her granny and her poppy, grandma and grandpa, and she lives with her two other cousins, Myrna, the oldest, who's 14, and Henry, who is a year older than her. And Henry's dad is in the army, so he's away at war, but he gets letters from him. And Henry loves to draw. He is an artist. That's one of his character traits. And then Myrna is their cousin, but not by blood. Myrna was adopted into the family by Granny, who was a midwife, who gave birth. She helped her mom birth her, but then unfortunately, Myrna's mom passed away right afterwards. So she never knew her mom and doesn't know who her dad is. She just knows who her family is. All right, so Henry and Myrna are still in South Carolina, but Ella is in Boston. She's in the big city. And remember, there's big differences between the big city in Boston in the north on the East Coast and in the south on the East Coast, right? South Carolina is full of racist people. There's segregation happening, which meant that you could not, there was a separate between people of color and white people, right? So, like, you couldn't eat in certain restaurants, you couldn't use certain water fountains, you couldn't um, swim in swimming pools, like all sorts of stuff. Schools were segregated. Um, And then the North, though, that wasn't the case. And then the North, there was a lot more freedom and leeway as to where you want to go and do. And one of the things that Ella's discovering is that if you are a person of color in the North, you are treated like a human being. It's not a character trait that defines you, right? It's not whereas in the South, that is a defining factor. People will be your friend or not be your friend based on your skin color. Whereas in the North, the skin color doesn't seem to matter as much. And she finds that wonderful, as she should, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get reading. Ella. The sofa buckled, and Mama's small frame squeezed in next to me. She bent down and kissed my temple, bathing me in her sweet fragrance. I squinted my eyes at the first of the light. I squinted my eyes at the first light of day. Good morning, my angel. She had a yellow kerchief wrapped around her head and tied at the front. She already had her wool overcoat on, but I could see her dungarees and work boots peeking out at the bottom. Going to the naval yard? I asked, sitting on my elbows. She nodded. Someone from work gave Helen a pie. Mama motioned to the kitchen. You can have as much of it as you'd like, said Helen. Pie for breakfast? I looked to Mama to see if it was really okay, and she smiled and nodded. Enjoy. Once they'd gone, I went to the window to see my favorite neighbors across the way, but the apartment looked empty and still. I waited and waited, but no one walked by. The Christmas tree was long gone. Down below, folks on foot in cars and in buses hustled through the streets, all rushing to get somewhere important. I pressed my cheek against the cold glass. Oh man, I love doing that. I've done that before. Wonder if any of you guys have ever done that before. I pressed my cheek against the cold glass. It hadn't snowed in over a week, but I imagined it was still probably chilly out there. I breathed hot air on the glass and drew a heart in the steam, watched it fade away. I cranked up the radio and went to the front closet. The fur coat was there. I slipped it on, then went to the kitchen to see that pie. It sat all alone on the pale blue tile counter. It had a perfectly browned lattice top. I was pretty sure that it was apple. No one had taken so much as a nibble of crust. I took down a small plate, found a knife, and cut myself a wide triangle of pie. I decided I'd picnic on the fire escape for a while. Cozy in my coat, I could watch the world go by. The window was easy enough to lift once I'd found the latch and freed it. I held the window up with one hand, my pie in the other, and stepped outside. I could feel the cold steel under my feet, even through my socks. Once outside, I tried to lower the window carefully, but with one hand holding the plate, I couldn't keep my grip and the window slammed shut. Uh-oh. I'm having a prediction. Do you think she's going to get locked out? I wonder. I better write that down. I think she might get locked out. I couldn't keep my grip and the window slammed shut. It happened so fast and the snap was so loud. I dropped my plate and watched it fall and shatter on the concrete sidewalk 5 stories down. Oh no, Mama's plate! My pie! I had a moment of panic, but then I thought it was a simple white plate. Couldn't have any special meaning, and besides, mistakes happen. Mama would understand. And there was more pie. I'd go back in soon and get more. I looked up, and around it all that city around me. I was in it, but not really in it. Like a starling perched up high. Starling is a type of bird. A new window. Oh no, I'm having trouble reading today. A new building was going up down the street. Construction workers in tiny domed hats carried large metal planks and drilled and banged away with their hammers. About a block away, school was just starting. There were children on the playground and children on the sidewalks and street making their way to class. It reminded me of the Alan Crite painting Helen had shown me. Even from where I stood, I could hear them shouting and screaming. It had to be the same school I'd be going to. All of February had passed. Mama still had no word on when that'd be happening. At school, having other kids to play with, I wouldn't have so much time to miss Henry and everyone back in Alcaloo. I strained to see the kids, to see what they were doing, what games they were playing. I suddenly missed Henry with my whole heart. He'd be fascinated by this city, with its different kinds of people and food, and being able to drink from whatever fountain you wanted. He wouldn't want to live here, though. There was nowhere to go fishing. There were trees, but we had the best climbing trees in Alcaloo for sure. There were no berry bushes, only lots of metal and concrete and noise. And you couldn't run and run. You had to watch out for automobiles at every turn. If Henry was with me on the fire escape, we'd watch the people go by and make up stories about who they were and where they were going. We'd make up families for them and jobs and everything. Sometimes when we went into Charleston with Poppy, we'd do the same. Once we saw a lady and a little girl, and Henry said, "That there is Evil Ethel, wanted in 3 states for kidnapping and armed robbery. That little girl with her, that ain't her daughter. That's poor little Susie Goodfoot. Lives in Alabama with her ma, pa, and her 3 brothers. Evil Ethel done robbed that family at gunpoint. Took all their money. See that car? That's the getaway. She took Susie 'cause Evil Ethel is sad and empty inside and wants a little girl of her own. Thinks if she heals her sad insides, she'll stop breaking the law and being bad." I loved playing that game with Henry. His stories were always so funny, but they also made me look at folks differently. You never really know who people were or what their story was. There was movement in the Happy Family's house. It was the daddy. He was walking towards the window. As he got closer, I saw that he was walking with a cane. He looked below, down onto the city, but he never looked up, never saw me just across the way watching. I licked the traces of sticky filling from my fingers and held them up to the icy sky to inspect them. Satisfied that I was clean and longing for the warm apartment, I pulled on the window so I could go inside. It didn't budge. I knew I had to be doing something wrong. So I pulled on it again and again with all my might. I pulled, then I glanced inside and saw that it had nothing to do with my strength. The latch had fallen back into place, and I was locked out. I knew it. Panic rose up in me. I began banging hard on the glass, even though I knew there was no one inside to help. I pulled on the window again and screamed and cried when it wouldn't open. A cold surge of air hit the back of my neck. I pulled the coat collar up high and tight around me and tucked my hands deep into the pockets. I turned to look across the way at the daddy in the window, but he was gone. I couldn't see no one in any window to wave to. No one down below was looking up. "Hello!" I called to the street below. But the busy people just kept bustling around, unable to hear me over the jackhammer, the cars, and the other screaming children. "Help!" I finally took a good look at the fire escape stairs. They were there for an emergency, right? This was definitely that. I could take the stairs down to the 4th floor and tap on the window there. It was awfully embarrassing, but what else could I do? I carefully walked backwards down the steps until I reached the platform below and tapped on the window. I knocked again, louder this time. No one came. I reached down and pulled on the window frame, hoping it could budge when mine hadn't. If I could get inside, I could let myself out into the hall. No luck. What do you guys think is going to be happening here? What are your predictions? Do you think she's going to get inside? Is she going to have to stay outside in the cold, be hungry until her mama gets home? Is somebody nice going to let her in, or is she going to get in trouble? I held my face close to the window and shouted, "Hello," before I collapsed into sobs again. But before they could take over, I shook them off, straightened up, and took the next set of stairs down to the next platform and did the same thing all over again. Again, no one came to my rescue. I repeated the same sorry routine until I finally was on the bottom platform, the last floor, my last chance. Nothing. Where the heck was everybody? My cold feet were becoming difficult to walk on the metal across the metal grating. They'd frozen into rocks, and there were no more stairs, only a ladder. But it was up too high from the street. I couldn't figure out how it worked. I stepped onto the first rung, and suddenly, without warning, the ladder released, sliding along rails, taking me on a ride towards the street. I held my breath the whole way, holding on for my life. I was sure it was going to collapse along with me onto the ground below, where I'd splat like my pie, but just shy of the pavement, it stopped. I quickly jumped down before it had a chance to topple. I took off for the front of the Mama's building. I ran up 1, 2, 3, 4 flights of steps until I reached the 5th floor, Mama's floor. I ran to her apartment and batted with the locked door, turning it, twisting it, pushing it, pulling it, shaking. Unlike the front door at my house in South Carolina, this one looked like something out of a bank heist movie, like something I'd need to blast my way into. I shook the knob some more and banged on the door, frustrated. I knew there was no one inside that could help. I sank down onto the dingy welcome mat and cried. When she got home, Mama was going to see that I wasn't mature enough to take care of things after all. Now, it ain't that bad. It was nosy body Florence. I hadn't heard her approaching, but she was leaning in close. Florence is here, little one. I got the key. Makes me teary. She held up a ring of keys for me to see. Even if it had been Florence, I was grateful to have been rescued. What were you looking for out in the hall, anyway? She asked. The key ring she carried looked like it held the keys to all the homes in Boston. I'd never seen so many keys in all my life. Florence studied them one at a time, her brows knit in a deep frown as she concentrated on the different shapes. Actually, I was out on the fire escape, I said. Florence looked up from her keys and squinched her face, confused. The window locked behind me. She stopped what she was doing and took one step back, her jaw dropping in disbelief. You came down all them floors on the fire escape? I nodded, embarrassed. She shook her head and laughed a strange little laugh to herself before going back to her keys. Now, no, that wouldn't be it, she said, holding up one brass key and then another. Does that look right? She held up another that, to me, looked like all the rest, but when she tried it, it fit. I was flooded with relief. Oh, thank you so much, I said, but as I stepped inside, Florence quickly followed. She crossed straight to the window and began to fiddle with the latch. We'll get the building supervisor over here to check on this here thing. Thank you, I said, and went to the closet to hang the coat back up. I felt Florence move behind me and soon heard her banging through kitchen cupboards looking for cups. Your mama got tea or just coffee? She called. Never mind, got it. Soon she'd put together cups for both of us, and we sat on my unmade bed on the sofa, Florence sipping and gabbing while I just blew gently on the top of my tea. I was thankful she'd let me in, but I wanted her to hurry and get gone. What if Mama had to come home early and see me chatting it up with Florence? She'd pitch a fit for sure. When I found out your mama was from South Carolina like me, I thought, well, ain't that something? Such a coincidence. We'd both end up miles from home, but right down the hall from one another. Shoot, I wouldn't be surprised if some of my people know some of your people, you know? But, well, Lucille hadn't told me all that much about her people. You was living with your grandfolks back in South Carolina? She asked. I nodded. I tried to go home to see my folks and my little brother Earl, but it ain't easy. We talk on the phone sometimes, she said. You know what I miss the most of all? I shook my head. My mama's cooking. She clapped her hands. My granny's a real good cook, too, I said, picturing Granny kneading dough for biscuits. How about your daddy? You see him much? She lifted her tea and sipped, eyes on me. Well, no, he's in California, I said, sticking to the story I'd been told. California? She said it with surprise, then looked down into her tea. Well, that's too bad. I couldn't understand why Mama didn't like Florence. She asked a lot of questions and all, but she was just being friendly, neighborly even. I didn't mind her at all. I best be going, Miss Ella. I thanked her again. She gave her a slice of Ellen's pie and walked her to the hall. I was careful not to let the door close behind me, but felt secure knowing where I could find the key if I needed it. Mama and Helen came home late afternoon as always, and as usual, Mama was too pooped to talk or do anything besides sleep. She promised to just take a quick nap, but didn't wake up until Helen and I were scraping our dishes into the garbage. She flew into the kitchen in a frenzy. Helen, I forgot I got a show tonight. She poured herself a tall glass of milk and gulped it down like Poppy pouring oil into the car engine. I swore I could hear the same glug, glug. Oh, Luce, Helen said. Can't you tell him something? Mama held her hands up and shrugged. You know what's going to happen if I pass up a show. I wish you could stay, Mama, I said. Helen turned and walked out of the room without a word. Mama sighed. Me too, baby. She knelt down and brushed her eyelashes over my cheeks. Butterfly kisses. It made me giggle. It always did, even though I was disappointed. Then she said, Look, you stay up tonight until I get home. Think you can do that? Can you stay up for Mama? She darted off the bedroom as she spoke. Okay, I said, sure. And I tried. I really did. I didn't even change into my night clothes. Helen and I played a few games of spades, and I busied myself with a new doll and reading the new book Helen had picked up for me from the public library. When I felt my eyelids get heavy, I made sure to sit up straight on the sofa. I refused to lie down and did all I could to stay awake for Mama. I just couldn't. All right, and that is the end of our chapter. Guys, we're on page 182. Look at us blowing through it, and we're getting pretty good. We are past the halfway mark, which is pretty awesome. All right, so again, with that character trait, when I was saying that she's tough, right? Like, based on Florence's reaction, Florence is the nosy neighbor that Mama doesn't like. Based on Florence's reaction, it's probably pretty tough to go down those stairs, down the fire escape thing. So, yeah, I think that just kind of adds to the character of who she is and how she does things a little bit differently. All right, you guys, that is it for us today. I hope you enjoyed our story. I can't wait to read what happens tomorrow.